Welcome to Ambition Today, a podcast show discussing with other entrepreneurial and ambitious people what it means to achieve success, grow your startup, try to change the world, and accomplish your goals today. On episode 5, we are joined by Cory Crosland, founder and president of Croscon. Croscon is an engineering company which partners with big thinkers to plan, engineer, and support their digital business. Be sure to subscribe to Ambition Today in the iTunes Store, Stitcher for Android, SoundCloud, or now listen to us on YouTube. Today's episode of Ambition Today is brought to you by Audible.com. Visit audibletrial.com/ambition today to download and keep any audiobook for free. This is Ambition Today.
Looking to make your dreams come true? Needing that extra push to become more successful? Then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Ambition Today with your host, Kevin Siskar.
What's up, world? I am Kevin Siskar, and you are listening to Ambition Today. You can find me on Twitter at @thesiskar or online at www.siskar.co. On today's program, we have Cory Crosland, founder and president of Croscon. Croscon is an engineering-first company that partners with clients to build innovative software and products. Cory, welcome to the show. Really excited to have you here and share your story with the audience.
Thanks for having me, Kev Dog.
And we actually have a third guest today, correct?
That is correct. We have a small golden doodle. His name is Bruce, and he is part of the culture here at Croscon.
Okay, great. So then how did you get your first start as an entrepreneur?
So when I was a kid, about 13, 14, I really started to become fascinated with the computer. Anytime I could get my brother or sister or parents to drive me to CompUSA, pick up a Slackware CD or something, install Linux on, and try to compile the latest kernel and off of a dial-up modem, or setting up a bulletin board system and having people dial in on a multi-line system that I had set up. I was just totally fascinated with computing. So this kind of got out, and I was also very cool, by the way, in high school and middle school. But this kind of got out, and my parents' friends were like, "Hey, I need help with my computer," and this was kind of the beginning of things starting to heat up in the mid 90s with computing. And so they would literally come to my house. I couldn't drive, didn't have a driver's license, pick me up.
Oh, so you were young.
Super young. Yeah, I was like 13, 14, maybe at the latest 15. And pick me up, take me to their place, either their place of business, which was always interesting because I was this little kid running around like, slinging Ethernet cords, or setting up servers, or setting up computers and printers and all of that stuff. And I would just send them an invoice. Here's $20 an hour, and that was kind of the start of the bug for me of entrepreneurship, as far as creating a business myself and running a business myself.
How important do you think it is at an early age, getting exposed to you taking the initiative of doing a task and then getting cash for it versus going and getting paid hourly?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge factor, because you start to realize immediately, if you work harder or if you do more, you are directly incentivized to do that, versus in an hourly position, you could kill it one day, but you're still going to take home the same amount of money. And so for me, I realized that, okay, well, if I can work, 8 hours servicing clients, that's going to have a way greater impact for me than spending that time elsewhere.
Okay. Okay, cool. And then so after childhood, where'd you go to college?
So went up to Syracuse, SU, upstate, and
Upstate New York.
Yep, beautiful Syracuse. And studied information technology management up there. It's kind of a newish program up there that kind of crossed between business and information technology and computer science. And kind of always knew that I wanted to kind of straddle the line between programming, development, and business and technology. So for me, that was a perfect fit. And throughout my time there at SU, I was still consulting and building systems for clients, really in the New York tri-state area. That's kind of where my, door-to-door computer consulting business kind of took me, as far as starting to then go from the tech support business to the development business. And so once I graduated from SU, I took a job at a company in Lower Manhattan and worked there for a little over a year. My main job there as director of IT, it was a pretty small company, was to build software for food companies, like Kraft Foods, Master Foods, things of that nature. And I saw basically firsthand, based on my business experience and entrepreneurship, how things that I was working on. In one example, we had created a customer relationship management platform for Kraft Foods, and that was sold in for like, hey, a license of $80,000 for a year for the software to Kraft. And so, I looked at that and I was like, well, great. I'm making 50, 55 or whatever. I would love to, not necessarily make more money, but I would love to be more a part of this business and to kind of help find innovative ways that we can kind of start licensing the software. I mean, at the time, it took me about 2 weeks to build that platform that they then sold for a decent amount of license subscription for. So that kind of turned me on to early on that, there is a whole, SaaS model here of custom software that really works well, that companies are eager to pay a monthly fee without having to go through the whole custom software bit. Even though we just go back and write it and build it for them, right? We're still then able to retain ownership and to build it from there. And so those kind of so
this led you to Croscon?
Yeah. So once I kind of had those conversations and said, look, I'm here to maybe even take less money. I really want to build a business. I see potential here to keep kind of running with this. And at the time, it wasn't a good fit, and they weren't into the idea so much of a kid coming in and trying to tell them that I should get equity in the business and all these other things. So I decided at that point, well, if I can make and find about 15, 20 hours of work at $70 an hour or so, and be a freelancer running around the city with my head cut off, then I would be able to make the same amount of money that I am now, or maybe even more. Worst case, this whole thing doesn't work, I'm crazy, and I go back and live with my parents and figure reboot.
Yeah. So you had not a terrible plan B, not ideal, but there was an option.
Not ideal. That would have been super embarrassing. Luckily, it all worked out. But I think that's a really important lesson, is to just, anytime you're about to take a risk, anytime you're about to take a jump, that you are totally aware of the worst case scenario, because that's really the only way to get comfortable with what you're about to do. So luckily, that all worked out, and here we are today.
Yeah, it's great advice. So when did you know you were onto something with Croscon? And when did it jump from just you to a company?
Yeah, so basically quit my job, found some office space with a similar colleague who that I worked with, and went to work the next day, and started trying to figure out, okay, who am I going to call on? Who's going to really want my services? And got lucky very early on with some friends of mine who networked me into, and just really needed my assistance from companies like Radical Media, or a small apartment brokerage company that wanted to build out their own database for, at that time, like it was basically the precursor to StreetEasy. So very, very cool opportunities where I was realizing, okay, well, this is the beginning really for Croscon, and I started to take on a gentleman named Marcel Esser on like a 10-hour a week basis. Okay. And so now Croscon at that point was more than just myself, and we were able to do, maybe instead of 40, 50 hours just by myself, we were able to do, 60, 70 hours.
Wow.
And so from there, I got an RFP on my desk from a government association that wanted a whole learning management platform built. And I looked at this RFP and I was like, holy shit, this thing is like, I'm going to have to be spending like a week of my time, putting this thing together. And so
what's that moment like where you are, because you've spent years, you're like, oh, can I get, you want those larger contracts, but then you get one and you're like, oh man, like how are we gonna take this on?
Right.
How do you approach that and handle it?
Well, for me, I think in that particular case, we got super lucky because I wrote them an email and I just said, hey, look, we're right down the street. We're very, very interested in this, but we just don't feel like we have the time right now to work on this project. Kind of bowed out gracefully. About 3 weeks later, they emailed me and they said all the other firms that pitched us, we didn't like their approach, and we really liked what you guys said about what you could do. Do you think you could get this job done for us? So I wrote them an email back and I said, yeah, it'll be about $65,000. Let us know. And that was literally, I went from a huge RFP process down to like, all right, now I'm writing basically a proposal that's already accepted. And it was like, okay, this is awesome because
Nice.
I'm not going through the whole bidding process and being on a conference call with 15 other vendors who are asking a lot of great questions. And I'm sitting there like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
So that was huge. And at the same time, we had a pretty decent partnership with Rackspace. I mean, they would send us some clients and vice versa, and we were small fish, but they sent us this one crazy company out in like Qatar, or not, actually, I think it was like UAE or Dubai or something, and they wanted to build a like shareholder management platform for people to like onboard share owners, and they were like trying to enable their whole country to partake in like oil revenue.
Okay.
And so they basically were like, hey, we're going to wire you a whole bunch of money, and thanks for building the system for us. And so those two things basically happened to me at like literally within 3 months of each other. And so I called up Marcel and I was like, all right, you're going to quit your job. I'm going to buy a racing bike because I like to cycle, and I'm going to hire you. And I basically those were the two things I spent the money on, a $2,000 road bike and a very expensive employee who now turned into bicycle.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Not motorcycle.
Not
Okay.
motorcycle.
And then
so hired Marcel, and that for me, I think was a huge turning point for the business because now we had employees or an employee. So for me, I realized that this is something that can definitely grow. How do we now scale this, and how do we continue to grow it? So that was definitely an inflection point.
awesome. And so, how many employees are you at now? And then how did you grow from one to what you're currently at?
So we just hired our 17th employee, and that growth, most of the employees we've hired has really been in the last 2 or 3 years. At the ring of the new year of this year, we were at 9 employees.
Oh, wow.
So we've hired about an employee a month this year, and are on pace to continue doing that through the rest of the year. So really, we don't have any venture capitalists or any investments.
It's a fully bootstrapped
company. So for us, the employee growth really comes from continued, client business and success we're having with our clients and repeat business. So at the same time, 100% of our business, for the most part, is word of mouth and current clients. So for us in the last couple of years, we kind of got to a point where as we started to add more and more folks to handle more and more work, we got, clients, more and more clients kind of coming in the door, because as our size has gotten bigger, so as our client work,
it's a nice snowball effect.
Yeah, very nice snowball effect. We started trying in the beginning because it's very terrifying to take a leap with an employee. We tried in the very beginning to bring in contractors that may not be on site, but were full time. And for us, the realization point was that if we're really going to build a great company, great culture, and great products and results for our clients, that we really need to have everyone here under one roof, working collaboratively, and building something from there. And the last thing that we did recently was to break, I guess this is kind of a natural thing with every company, but we were pretty much almost flat in the beginning, or kind of getting up to that 8-9 people mark. And really, for us to grow from here, we realized that we needed to bring everything into teams of disciplines. So in our engineering space, we have 4 teams that work on different parts of an application, and then we have our project management and strategy team and administrative team. So that is like another real big part of how we can kind of grow and scale the business.
So what threshold of employees? You said like 10 or 12 is where you felt you had to start creating those processes and departmentalizing and.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think process starts needing to happen at about 4 or 5 employees. You can kind of ad hoc things because I feel like any one, manager, one CEO, whatever, can really handle 3, 4 people. And then once it kind of get beyond that, your goals for the business or your objectives for the business start suffering because you're now just spending your time trying to, help people get the train moving down the track. So, for us, that's, we started some of the process when we were at that size. And then recently, as we kind of got past the 10 employee mark, we realized we really needed to put everyone into departments, into teams. And now some of our challenges that we're facing now are really trying to refine that again.
Okay, great. So let's take a quick sponsor break. But when we get back, I want to hear about the toughest problem Croscon has helped someone solve, and how it's going in your 10th year. So we'll be right back.
This is Ambition Today with Kevin Siskar. We'll be right back.
Today's sponsor of Ambition Today is Audible.com. Visit audibletrial.com/ambition today to download and keep any audiobook for free. Last year, I listened to Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and that fits the theme of this podcast perfectly. Napoleon Hill, back in 1937, spent 25 years researching successful people like Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, Alexander Graham Bell, and tried to distill what those concepts were that enabled and empowered them to be so successful. So Cory, I know we have you here today. You mentioned you're in the middle of reading, like a primitive caveman. You are reading How Google Works by Eric Schmidt. I just listened to that, I think probably 6 months ago. Have you ever tried Audible?
I've never tried Audible.
No, you got it. So you got to try Audible. So how are you with books? Do you get through them or?
Typically I get a couple chapters in or maybe halfway through, and then I just I feel like I just don't have the time.
Gotcha. Well, you would have the time if you listened to them on audible.com, because you can listen to them on your commute while you're walking Bruce, the golden doodle.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, your commute, while you're riding your bicycle. Totally.
Very cool. Yeah,
right.
I got to get on that. How long did it take you to listen to?
So most books are about like 10 hours.
Uh-huh.
But if you have a half hour, 20-minute commute, you have that twice a day, you can crush a book in like a week and a half. So,
yeah,
it's awesome.
That's great.
So if you want to get Audible, you can go to www.audibletrial.com/ambition today to download and listen to your free audiobook. And now back to this episode of Ambition Today.
You're listening to Ambition Today. Visit us now at siskar.co.
And we're back. So, Cory, we were just talking about Croscon and how you grew it to 17 employees over the last few years. So I think it's now in its 10th year, correct?
Yep.
Great. So over those 10 years, what is your favorite, craziest, coolest, the toughest problem Croscon has helped solve?
There's a lot of them, and I think that's the primary reason that we have such a great team and people want to work here, is that we get to solve some of those challenges. But I think that looking back, I would probably say one of which being the Johnny Cash project, which allows people to draw a frame of a video, submit it, and then have it actually featured into the ending music video, essentially.
That's really cool.
Like a flip book. And so we worked with our client Radical Media on that for the Johnny Cash project, and that was a number of years ago. But we were kind of in charge of the back end piece of that. So how do we actually take these drawings and stitch them together in a distributed way? And so we used a lot of cool open source tools, and that was kind of our probably one of our more challenging projects. And then recently, one project, actually 3 projects we just completed, all 3 in collaboration with Google, is basically a video platform that allows, in a similar theme, allows anyone or really actually anyone to create a video using either images they took or maybe a drawing, or for example, for Johnson & Johnson and YouTube, we created a tool that allows folks to submit and upload their baby pictures and then make a video baby album just using either their mobile phone or desktop browser. And then for Best Day Travel, which is down in Cancun, in Mexico, we created a travel website, so you can put in pictures of a trip you went on to, where you went, and then it'll start taking into account the weather of when you went on that trip and who you were with and the different photos that you had along the way, and create a video travel journey for you to then share. And then
nice.
For the Frito-Lay's Do Us a Flavor campaign, where you could win $1 million for submitting a crazy flavor idea, we allowed you to take your ingredients that you're submitting, go through a whole workflow where you can, like Mr. Potato Head, put like a hat on them or facial features, and then submit them into a video trailer, and as another way to like kind of increase the buzz. So
odds are our listeners have probably touched a piece of software you guys have created without really knowing it.
For sure. So those are some of the more challenging components, because they really activate all parts of our team, whether it's the creative thinkers, the front end badasses, or the back end monsters who are, coming up with how to solve these problems on a bigger scale, how to make this stuff easy.
That's
to
what
use.
you should call your departments, by the way.
Yeah, that is. No, just kidding. On the fly right now. I like it though. We do have a lot of animals here that we like to give nicknames out, whether you're a panda or a tuna. So yeah, it just fits with the theme.
Nice. I like the culture. Okay. And then I heard you won a Webby and you were nominated for a Grammy. Is that correct?
Yeah. So a lot of the work that we do happens to be kind of behind the scenes with some of the back end engineering or just trying to figure out how to make some of this impossible stuff come to life. And one of our partners for almost going on the life of the business, almost going on for 10 years, is Radical Media. They're down in the West Village, but they have offices all over the world, a huge production company. And they're absolutely phenomenal at what they do creatively, and they get to bring in these really cool projects, which we have the opportunity to help them with from an execution standpoint. So for the Johnny Cash project or Ocean Health Index, these are all kind of projects that we helped support them build, and in Light have won both Grammy nominations, not one, sorry, but have received a Grammy nomination and won numerous Webby Awards. And so that's very cool to be a part of.
That's incredible. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool. So I now want to move on. We are a new segment we're doing here on Ambition Today. This is the Ambition Today question of the day.
Ooh.
So we have a bunch of questions. We pull one out of a hat, and we have you answer it. So you ready?
I'm as ready as I think I'll ever be.
Okay, so today's Ambition Today question of the day is, as a founder and CEO, how do you stay motivated even into the 10th and 20th, the future years of the company?
Yeah, so tough one. But I think that the big thing is you really have to find the things that you love to do. And if you don't love it, either beat yourself into submissions that you do or just stop doing it. And if you're an entrepreneur, you have that total control to do whatever you want to do. And if a feature or a project or a client or whatever the case is something that you're not loving and can't get off the phone or get out of a meeting or see a problem and be like, I can't wait to solve this, then you either need to find someone in your organization that loves that stuff, or you need to get rid of it, right? So I think that for me, figuring out and finding the time is probably the hardest thing. But I think that when you kind of have that problem where you wake up thinking about it in the morning, or you're going to bed and you're thinking about it, and every free moment you want to solve it, I think you're onto the right track.
Right.
And for me, staying motivated is really kind of documenting out the goals that you need to be able to hit to feel like you're making progress. A lot of times it feels like you're not making progress. You feel like, weeks or months go by and you don't really feel like anything's happening. And you have to kind of keep that all in perspective and create more, smaller goals that you can hit and track yourself against. So you do feel like you left the office and you did something, because a lot of the times you're just sitting there putting out fires and you're like, oh my God, look at this. Oh God, take a look at that. And, there isn't really a time to really work on those big goals. So, documenting
and the big goals don't happen overnight.
No. And so it's kind of taking that big goal, like, hey, we want 1 million users, right? Or we want to, fix this process or whatever. And so it's digging into that, itemizing out what needs to happen to do it. And then all of a sudden you've broken something down into something that you can do in 2 hours. And you're like, great, check that one off. And let me go to the next thing. And it becomes taking a daunting problem and breaking it down. And we take the same approach with that as a huge client project. We have to break it down into tasks that can be completed in less than a half a day. So when you think about like a 2,000-hour project, that's a lot of things.
Right, that's got to be overwhelming.
That's super overwhelming. Takes many days to do. But once you launch that and you do it and you start checking off things that you're doing, you're watching the project get done in front of your eyes. So yeah. Same thing here.
All right, that's awesome answer. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you about, we have a little time, so I wanted to do a little news today. So this week, Google announced a whole bunch of new Nexus phones, and with that announcement, they announced Android is now used by 1.4 billion people.
Ay caramba.
Yeah, to put that in perspective, there's 7 billion people on the planet. I think of that, 5 billion have access to the internet, and 3 billion have access to cellular internet.
Wow.
And so Apple, I think, is somewhere between 800 million and 1 billion users. Mm. So they haven't given the numbers recently, but that's a lot of people on Android. As a developer and an engineer, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, since day one, I've of this whole thing, I've been kind of steered basically the whole organization away from any native development, and we've got great partners with companies that can do iOS or Android or whatever development. But what we're seeing here is a huge fragmentation of the market with all these different devices, screen sizes, OS, accessibility, different features that may or may not exist on certain phones. So it's really starting to become quite a challenge to develop universally across all mobile devices to create a native app. And you really have to be specialized in one or the other, or have a huge team to do so. So for us, this is maybe old hat, but we maintain that we want to kind of still be the universal web and just focus on web engineering, right. Because of some of those problems. There's obviously times when it just makes way more sense to create an app. But our business is then transformed itself into creating back ends of these applications. So very interesting to see. I know that Android has surpassed iOS like 4 years ago in terms of devices and activations. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to the landscape as these things continually change and evolve.
How do you see the desktop web moving towards the mobile web from your perspective, and what you see with clients? And
I think we're going to continue to see just world-class web and mobile site offerings that will still will become more and more native feeling. I think that a lot of the things in the HTML5 spec and also kind of what's up on the roadmap will allow a lot of these things to just happen via a site without having to download an app. So I think that will be kind of the saving grace here for that middle layer between like, do I really need to download this? And, I just want to go to a site real quick and right. jump into it. So, I think that convincing a customer to download an app for something that may be either short-lived or just unnecessary, is probably the concern there. And I think that where these things are heading with compatibility and feature set inside of the HTML and JavaScript engines will be kind of where this thing ends up heading. There's always going to be a huge market for apps, and it's just becoming one of those things where, I mean, I think a lot of people want to launch first on iOS, which is interesting because of that statistic, right? Where more people actually have Androids. So that's that's really something interesting as far as
Well, I think that's because there's less fragmentation, right? So you only have to build it once.
Right, exactly. And that now that they have 3-4 device sizes and then so many different iPads, screen size is becoming an issue, but their developer tools are pretty solid as far as being able to create things quickly and universally for all those different devices.
Okay, cool. So that's about it for today. So I just want to thank you for coming on this episode of Ambition Today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin, for coming over and talking.
Yeah, definitely. And where can people go to find out more about you?
Croscon.com.
Croscon.com. There it is. Bruce, you didn't say anything. We were expecting a bark. Bruce is sleeping in the corner.
He's psyched to be here.
He's super psyched. All right, Cory, thank you, and I'll see you next time on Ambition Today.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Ambition Today with your host, Kevin Siskar. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit www.siskar.co. We'll catch you next time.